we're set. Lord, I just thank you for Don's prayer. I've worked on this, but I just pray that you lead me with your Holy Spirit through this, and just open the hearts of those who would hear. And what Don said this morning, everybody's got something to contribute, and I think this is something that I have, and I hope it just sinks in and helps everyone on the camera and here to just open up and see what you're like and worship you. In Jesus' name, amen. This is KWPB, Low Power FM, Newport, Oregon, and Yaquina Bay Chapel. It is October 22nd, 2023, with Joe Joncas, teacher. Okay, today it's Genesis 1, Day 4, and it'll be verses 14 through 19. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I just really hope today that you will see the grandeur of God, see what He has created, see the details and the extreme variety of what He has done, so you'll know better how to worship Him. Now, just a little reminder, some of the science in here is theory. We're going to be covering, of course, what God said in these verses. But some of the stuff that when I talk about science, it is a theory. And I like other people to look at this and come up with their own theories also. But I'll be talking about Dr. Humphreys and some of his theories. And he's a man who really encourages people to go out and look at what God has said and develop their own theories in science. But anyway, as to review, we'll go through our demonstration that I've done in the past 3 presentations. But to start out with, verse 2, the earth was formless and void, the darkness was over the surface of the deep. And of course, this is what we would see. It's a blank screen, right? on purpose. But if we had God's eyes, we would see this. Here's the earth and the Holy Spirit over the earth, represented there by a dove. But the one thing that most people don't know, and unless you are a Hebraist, an expert in the Hebrew language, that is not a rock. That is actually a ball of water. And Dr. Steve Boyd, who is a Hebraist, has shown us what this actually means in Hebrew. And unfortunately, the words that are used and what they mean in Hebrew are very difficult to translate into English. So in 2 Peter 3:5, this is what helps us to remember this. It escapes their notice that by the word of God the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. So if we look at this and we see this ball that was initially created, it's a ball of water. And then God, verse 3, said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now, I believe that light encompassed the entire ball of water. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. So here's what we've got. This is what Dr. Humphreys says. We discussed him in previous presentations, but he saw from what the Hebrew says about what happened that this was a ball of water. He suggests that it is at least 1 light year in diameter, and it contains all the mass as water of the entire universe. He's actually written 3 theories on this. Actually, I'll tell you about it now. And this is how I got interested in him. Was this little book came out in 1994. It's called Starlight and Time, and that's where he first discovered that it was a ball of water. And this was his first theory. And one of the things I really like about him, now I hope I can turn to this, he's really a humble man. And he says, we need more and better creationist cosmologies. I say more because mine may prove to have fatal flaws of its own, in what he had suggested in this book. But if we have a variety of good theories to choose from, we are much more likely to find the truth. And this is actually how science ought to work. People with that kind of attitude. But the people that have taken on today's society, they don't believe that way. You either buy what they teach you, lock, stock, and barrel, or they reject you, they ridicule you, and they do all kinds of things.
That's because their motivation's wrong.
Their motivation is very wrong.
Right.
Absolutely.
They believe the lie.
Then Dr. Humphreys came up with this. I think this was 2008. This is a forum, and it's actually Dr. John Hartnett and Dr. Humphreys produced this video, and Dr. Humphreys' second idea was in there. And I got to tell you, I really liked what Dr. Hartnett said. He suggested that there was a 5th dimension, and what it was is when God stretched out space, he accelerated the stretching out of space, and when he did so, that would have been a 5th dimension. And that actually made a lot of sense to me. I had a terrible time wrapping my mind about what Dr. Russell says today. I read it and understood kind of what he was saying, but whether it was right or wrong, I have no idea because I didn't truly understand it. I know that he did. But, and I have his latest work. It came out in December of this last year. And I've got the paper in my bag, and it'll be available to the public in December of this year, but it's published by creation.com in their newsletter. So anyway, I really like his latest presentation. Dr. Humphreys in the 1960s predicted that many of the planets would have magnetic fields. Not only did he predict that, but he predicted how powerful they would be. And this I'm telling you this just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of mind he has and how accurate he has. Because he used the Bible to decide what was happening and why. And by following the Bible, he was able to predict what the magnetic fields would be. But NASA at that time said, no way. These planets are 4.5 billion years old, and there's no way they could have a magnetic field. You know, and I think about that and I think, well, why does the Earth have a magnetic field? because it's that old according to them, right?
Yeah.
But then they sent out the satellites, and they went out there and they discovered they had magnetic fields, and they were as Dr. Humphreys had predicted. Anyway, you see here that this ball of water is at least 1 light year across. Now, a light year is not time, that's a measurement of distance. And it's about 5.9 trillion miles. Oh, Rocky, if you think that's a big number, I mean, that's about a quarter away to our nearest star besides our sun. It is a big number. I've got bigger numbers coming yet. See that little tiny dot in the middle? We're going to make that a little bigger so we can see it. Because in reality, in the original thing, we wouldn't have been able to see anything there at all. Okay, in verse 5a, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning one day. Now, imagine taking that ball of water and spinning it in 24 hours to make a complete circumference. That the water that's on the outside of that would have been moving very fast. Just think about that for a little bit. Okay, day 2, verses 6 through 8. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So you can see here where the earth would be, there was an expanse created between it and the waters that are on the outside. So let's get this to scale here, because I mean, after all, that whole thing's only 1 light year in diameter, right? And we're going to be talking about the entire universe, which is very big. So the next thing we see is God made the expanse and separated the waters which were below the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. Now in Isaiah 48:13, it says, "Surely my hand founded the earth, and my right hand spread out the universe." The heavens. Now this gives us a clue where Dr. Humphreys and Dr. Hartnett are coming from. Because the secular scientists don't understand how they see it spreading out, and they say it's spread out, but they don't understand the Bible. In fact, they want to deny the Bible. But those two men said it was so. That verse, by the way, that is repeated at least a dozen times in the Old Testament. God spread out the universe. So let's take a look at this and see what happens. There we've taken the ball of water, which is 1 light year in diameter, and stretched it out. And you see all those little blobs in there? Those are blobs of water. And the outside circle, by this time, is ice. So there's ice on the outside of the universe, and that's at least 30 billion light years across. That was a lot of water, and it got spread out. And when we look out with our telescopes, we see it out there. Now this started on day 2. We haven't quite got to day 3 yet. So this stretching out could have occurred between day 2 and the end of day 4. But we don't know, we have no way of knowing how God really did it. If he stretched it out all on day 2 and let it sit there and wait, or if he just stretched it out as he was doing everything else. So that's the end of day 2. Now, how do I know that there's ice above the universe? In Psalms 148:4 it says, "Praise him, highest heavens, and the waters that are above the heavens." So we know that the water got out that far. Now let's talk about day 3, verses 9 through 13. Pangea was formed on that day. In verse 9 it says, "Then God said, let the waters beneath the sky flow together into one place, so dry ground may appear." And that is what happened. 10. God called the dry ground land, and the waters seas. And God saw that it was good. Now let's look at what God created on day 3. Excuse me, I got a mouthful here. Anyway, but now from science we have discovered what you see here. This is the earth and the center of the earth. God in that day took the water and he turned it into this. You can see that there's a core in there. There's a solid metal core in the middle of the earth. And then around that there's a molten metal core. And outside of that is magma. I mean, we see volcanoes going off. That's magma coming up out of the earth. And then there's the crust. You know, the rock and the sand and the dirt and everything that we see. Now, I think that the magnetic field that was formed by the water, and Dr. Humphreys has said if you have water, a ball of water, and you line up every single water molecule, they will have each one of them has a magnetic field. If they're all lined up, they'll create a huge magnetic field. So when he created this, I believe that possibly that magnetic field induced into the core of the earth the magnetic field that we're having now. But I'm not real sure about that, because we have planets that do not have a metal core that have magnetic fields. So the water that they were made out of originally may still be in those planets and are creating the magnetic field. But that's just a guess on my part. As I said, some of this stuff that I say today is theory. I hope someday to get to speak to Dr. Humphreys and talk to him about these things. Now there's something in this verse that says the waters below the heavens. Means that he was referring to the water that became the earth. That means that on day 3, that's all he dealt with. We are a very special place. You know, that so many of these atheistic scientists, they will do anything to try to talk down the earth. They call us a rock, a small insignificant rock next to an insignificant sun that's worthless, and how we came about, they don't know, except they figure that over billions of years we managed to form out of nothing. There is so much evidence that supports what the Bible says, what this says. It's overwhelming. But if anybody tries to speak about it or talk about it, they're just shut down. It's not good. Okay, verse 11, excuse me. Then God said, let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant, and trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kinds of plants and trees from which they came. And that is what happened. When God speaks, that's what happens. So, I mean, I want you to just imagine, you've seen slow motion videos of plants and things growing. Just imagine that all of a sudden, all of the land that was on the earth at that time just started sprouting vegetation. It just started growing out of the ground and growing, and in one day, there it all was, all ready to go. God created the environment for stuff to grow on that day. You know, and one of the things, the Bible is not a science book. It's not to educate us in science. It gives us clues as to what happened. Now, one of the things that science has learned, that a plant can't grow, it cannot, like a tree, it cannot suck water up into it unless it has fungus growing around its roots that help it gather the water so it can suck it up into the tree. You know, that's something that the people who wrote the Bible would not have known. It's modern science that's brought this out. Without, what do we call it, funguses or fungi? You're shaking your head, yes, fungi.
Yeah.
If it weren't for that, so God had to have created the fungi on that day. But you know what's interesting? They have found fungi and other stuff deep in the earth, tens of miles down. This whole earth is covered with fungi and all kinds of stuff that we don't even know about, that isn't even talked about in the Bible. To me, the earth is like a living creature. And to me, it's absolutely amazing. Okay, verse 12. The land produced vegetation, all sorts of seed-bearing plants and trees with seed-bearing fruit. The seeds produced plants and trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good. God said, and the land produced. And evening passed and morning came, marking the third day. And that's the end of the introduction for today. Now let's go on. There's Pangea, and now it's covered with plant life. And not only that, but I believe that the oceans have plant life in them also, ready for the fish that are coming on day 5. But day 4, verses 14 through 19. Now, I want you to notice I've got 2 translations here. And I'm doing this, each translation is slightly different. I want you to see how much they're alike. And if you read any one of, actually literally now hundreds of translations, they are like this. They're very much alike. You can understand what they're saying, but there are some subtle differences. So let's read the New Living Translation first. Then God said, "Let lights appear in the sky and separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years." And 14 of it, the New American Standard Bible, then God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And verse 15, let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth. And that is what happened. Verse 16, God made 2 great lights. The larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. Okay, in verse 15 of the NASB, and let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. Now notice in the New Living Translation, it talks about the size of the moon and the sun, and in NASB, he talks about how bright they are. There's a little bit of difference. Each one is kind of correct, because we know that the sun is much bigger than the moon. They appear to be the same size. One is very bright and one is quite dim. So anyway, and then there's another distinction that we need to look at. Now notice I have he made in brackets the stars also. He made is not in the Hebrew. When you see something with brackets like that, that means somebody added something to it. So when they translated, they did this to make it make sense to us, the readers. The Hebrew simply says, the stars also. This short phrase is a mouthful. Because we sit here and we look at the earth and we look around at what we see, and it's absolutely amazing. But shortly we're going to see some of the other stuff that he's made. But here's the earth with the sun and the moon. Verse 17, and God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And evening passed and morning came, marking the fourth day. God, in NASB, verse 17, God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. Has anybody ever been out away from the city in a clear place where there's no clouds
or lights,
and no moon? I've been up, actually it was Mount St. Helens before it blew up. I was out on Mount St. Helens, high in the atmosphere. There was no moon, and I could actually see to walk because of starlight. I mean, the ancient people that didn't have all this light that we create now to pollute the night sky with light, we modern people don't get to experience this hardly at all. But it's amazing how much light just the stars produce. So now I'm going to show you something that secular society has said, and this is what we've all been taught, sadly. This is how the universe came about. Now if you see the number 1 there, that's a cloud of gas. And that's, according to this article, it happened 4.6 billion years ago. Of course, these numbers keep growing because they keep trying to figure out how this could have possibly worked. And then it progressed through steps 2 and 3, things just coming together, right? And then by time you get to 5, there is a star lit up, and then there's these gas balls and things going around it. But all of this is supposed to have coalesced and become what we see today, ending up with 6. But I want to tell you something. It said the gas gathered together out in space. See this? This is the original compressed gas duster. Now watch it. Now, well, listen to what happens. But where'd that air go?
In the air.
It went in there, and then what happened? It was compressed in this can.
Dispersed.
It dispersed. It spread out.
Right.
I mean, that's high school physics. Duh. I mean, let's think about this a little bit. They're saying gas is out in space and it clumped together. Well, there are some circumstances, I guess, that it can happen, but
With
man,
all
let's.
those magnetic fields.
They ignore the absolutely clear things, and they say this must have happened because that's what must have happened to fit our theory.
A gas can't form a solid, can it?
If it's compressed.
Yeah. But there's no, what's compressing it?
Temperature can.
Or by temperature. You take water, it has 3 stages. Vapor, a solid, ice, and a liquid, water. You splash it. You can't splash ice.
Or
Can't-
gas.
Or the vapor. You can't splash the vapor either.
And gas, if frozen, will turn into a solid.
Right.
Maybe that's how it happened in space, but
That's what they don't know.
yeah, they don't have any way to prove this. Now, when I go through this, I'm not going to talk a lot about why it can't be, because Spike Pisaris, who is the person who created these videos, and I'll put a link to this so that you can find them and purchase them. But I mean, he's got what you are being told about astronomy. He has here our created solar system, our created stars and galaxies, our created universe. He has dozens, many reasons why this that you're looking at could not happen. And you know something? The people who are saying it are not the creationists, it's the atheists themselves that are saying this could not have happened. Their theories are not working. The sad part is they've known this for decades, and it is still taught in high school and college as if it is a fact. And they know it doesn't work. I mean, you know, to me, it just really frustrates me what they're, just cramming down our throats. They don't even believe it. It's the people who really know don't, but they keep teaching, so most of the people out there believe that this is how it came about. Now look, I'm going to take you on a tour of the universe. I want.
Can I get a nap first?
No.
All you have to do is stick out your thumb.
Yeah, just hitch a ride here. You know, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Right.
Some people will remember that references. I want you to see the power and grandeur of God as we go through this. I want you to see the tremendous variety in His creation. Because the secular scientists talk about how our universe came together. Well, how did it end up as diverse as it is if it all came from originally the same material? They have some ideas that they suggest, but they don't work. And if you watch, if you go to these and listen to these, it'll tell you why. But let's start with the sun. I'm trying to think of that one guy who said billions and billions and billions of... Yeah, I can't think of what his name is.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan. Oh yeah, billions and billions. We live on this rock, and it is, and we live next to this very ordinary sun, and hogwash. It's pure hogwash. We live by a very special sun. First of all, it is very stable. If it weren't stable, it would fry us. It is larger by far than most stars. Although there are stars that make our sun look like a pinhead. But most stars are red dwarfs, which are little tiny suns compared to what we have, and they're usually very unstable. It radiates the best light for plant growth. God put that together to support us to live. Let's look at Mercury. This planet is just a little bigger than our moon, and it's right next to the sun. According to the secular scientists, it ought to be a frozen rock, but it's not. It has a core that's huge, a metal core. Should not have, according to them, and it has a magnetic field, and they predicted it should not have a magnetic field, and Dr. Humphreys nailed it. And not only that, but from the Mariner in 1974 that measured it, as Dr. Humphreys predicted, 35 years later, it had shrunk 8%, the magnetic field. So how could that possibly be 4.5 billion years old? No way.
Isn't it true they don't consider Mercury a planet anymore?
No, that's Pluto.
Pluto, okay. I get it. I get those.
Yeah, and I want to argue with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me that's sad. But anyway, Venus. Now they say Venus is our sister planet. They say it should have had a moon like ours. They figured that underneath all those gases, it was a plant just teeming with plant life. A planet teeming with plant life. That it would have been very luxurious. Somebody help me out here. Anyway, but the fact is that atmosphere that's there, it's a greenhouse effect. The normal temperature on the surface is 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That melts lead. It's not a pleasant place to be. It has volcanoes all over it. It rains sulfuric acid. It is nothing like the Earth at all. And not only that, but remember, everything's supposed to have been created by this circulating big ball of gas, right? And so everything should be circulating the same direction, right? Well, Venus circulates the opposite direction. So it's going backwards. If you're on moon, the Earth comes up in the west. So, not the moon, excuse me, the sun comes up in the west. Oh, it is so funny. But then we come to Earth and our moon. Now, I got to tell you about this picture. My father gave me a slide of this exact picture when I was about 21 years old, 22 years old. He worked for Rocketdyne, the people who built the Saturn V and the lunar module that went to the moon. He was the head inspector on what the J2 rocket was. That was the big 5 rockets in the Saturn V. I mean, that thing's huge. It's bigger than the ceiling here, just at the mouth of it. He found one that was cracked, and nobody could see the crack. And it took him several days, and finally some other engineers were able to see the crack, so they sent it out to JPL, and they put it on the test stand and they blew it up. But they had to run it up to 120% of its capacity before it blew up. So anyway, he also was the inspector on the Lunar Ascent engine. And it's just a little thing. It's only about this wide and maybe about 7 foot tall. I'm just kind of guessing because I saw it at the museum in Washington, D.C. And I remember when the first man landed on the moon and they were getting ready to take off, my dad went out to the pool with his bottle and he said, "Tell me what happens." He couldn't watch. And as we all know, they got off the moon just fine. The next day they had a big party for him at work and congratulated him on doing a good job. So anyway, that's my very personal story about what the moon and the moonwalk. Our magnetic field shouldn't be there. I've already said that. It decreases by 1/2 every 1,400 years. So if the Earth were 4.5 billion years old, where would the magnetic field be? And if it were not for the magnetic field, which deflects all the radiation from the sun around the Earth, we would have been cooked a very long time ago, Dave.
About 0.5%. 1%.
Of what?
Would have been what it is now.
You asked a question.
The magnetic field would be 1%.
Oh, okay. It would be nothing. And it's that magnetic field that keeps us safe. And it is decreasing. It's not going to last that much longer. If we were to stay here on Earth without God coming and interceding, we would get fried here in another 1,000 years or so. Of course, genetically, we're not supposed to last that much longer either. But that's I'll talk about that later in another talk. Our Earth is covered with 70% water. According to secular scientists, there should be no water on the Earth at all. And boy, they go through all kinds of things trying to figure out how the water got here. But we know that it started out being 100% water. Oh, our moon. Our moon is just set up great. I mean, every once in a while, it gets between the Earth and the sun, and it's just perfect. It just covers up the sun. We can see the corona. I mean, many people just believe God created it that way just to give us a show. And I tell you, when the lunar eclipse went through here, it was just spectacular. I really enjoyed that. By the way, when the astronauts went to the moon, they put up an LLR. That's a lunar laser ranging thing. You can shoot a laser at the moon and count how long it takes to get from the moon back and know exactly how far the moon is away. Well, the thing that they've discovered since they did that is the moon is moving out 3.8 centimeters per year, about 1.5 inches. Now that doesn't sound like much till you try to add 4.5 billion years. Of course, you know, that's something that bothers me, though. 4.5 billion years ago, it was a gas cloud. So, it doesn't that doesn't add up to me. And everybody talks like that, and I've just got to mention that that's not quite right. But somewhere, millions of years ago, the Earth, the moon would have been running into the Earth. It just does not work. So let's move on to Mars.
We got
Dave
questions?
Fire.
You said it's moving away at about 1.5 inches a year.
Correct.
How could it attack the Earth if it's moving towards us?
No, I think,
Which you just said.
but he was talking about at the beginning,
Yeah, many years ago, it would have been right next to the Earth.
right on top of it.
And so it's moving out at this distance. I mean, it just doesn't work, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense to you, Dave?
No, because you said it was coming towards us and would crash into the Earth.
No, that is not what I intended.
Okay, that's what you said, though.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
You're going to have to go back and correct that.
No, I'll just leave it in. People
Oh,
understand that I make mistakes, and so Mars is a very hostile environment. The ground has, and I don't even know what these are, perchlorates. They are present in the ground in Mars. That's a poison. If they go to Mars, they're going to have to try to figure out how to keep the Martian dust from following the astronauts back in with them, because it would poison them. It's not a conducive place to life, and it's very dead.
Didn't they bring rocks back from Mars?
No, they've not brought anything back from Mars yet. They've crash landed into Mars quite a few times, but fortunately they've had some good landings, and they've got a good look at Mars. But Mars did have water on it at some time. See that huge groove that's in there? That was created by moving water. There's lots of evidence of water being on the surface of Mars. So that just helps. Everything that there was just a ball of water, and God turned it. He turned Mars into what you're looking at right now. Let's look at Jupiter. Here's Jupiter. He took a ball of water and turned it into that. And the secular scientists say that it should have a solid core, but it doesn't. It has a fuzzy core. It's a soft core. Just totally against what they predict.
How do they know that?
They think in their minds how it ought to be, how it was created, and they've come up, and this is the way they think it ought to be.
How do they know it's a fuzzy core?
Yeah, that's the
Oh, because the satellites have gone out and they've actually done a radar testing of the. It's a gaseous planet, so the radar went right through to the core. And if you ever watch these, this guy is so funny. Every single planet, when something doesn't fit their theory, they say a giant asteroid had to have run into it. And so they go from every one. He says, now, how do they predict that this happened? And then they go, ta-da, and they have this asteroid coming and hit it. It gets ridiculous. Anyway, let's look at
And there
some
it
of,
is, right there.
The orange spot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, actually, no. Where did that hit? An asteroid actually did hit the Saturn, and we have pictures of everything that happened.
You mean Jupiter,
What did I say?
Saturn?
Oh, Jupiter. I'm sorry. That's up next. Jupiter. Thank you. Anyway, that storm has been there ever since telescopes have been able to see it. And so, anyway, this is Io, one of Jupiter's moons. The surface is covered with volcanoes. And see that plume at the top of it up there, that blue plume?
Right.
Yeah, there's an eruption happening right there. And just, I mean, look at this. And then we go to Callisto, another one, and its surface, it is supposed to be as old as the 4.5 billion years of the surface. It's freshwater ice on the surface. And there's a slight atmosphere there. But it has such low gravity. How is the atmosphere coming back? But it's being replenished because they believe there's an ocean underneath that. And it spoots out. So, and then here's Europa. I mean, look at the difference in these things. And they're all supposed to have come from the same bunch of spinning gases. This is the smoothest planet. And it's got a shell of ice with water under the ice. And then here's Ganymede. This moon is bigger than the planet Mercury. It's big. And its surface is just, it looks like somebody painted with a really rough brush, and it's all rough all over the place. And it has a magnetic field, and they don't know how. Should have been gone a long time ago. Now we move to Saturn. Sorry, Dave. Thank you for correcting me. But look at that. I have seen this through my own telescopes repeatedly. This is a wonderful sight when you see it. But see that ring? Even
I
when
see
somebody...
rings. I see rings, not ring.
Oh, okay, I stand corrected. The rings. Those rings should not be there. You know why? 22,000 pounds of Saturn's rings are falling onto the planet of Saturn every second. 22,000 pounds. They're disappearing. Even the secular scientists have said, oh, those rings must be very young. But they try to say 500 million years old. Well, try 6,000 years old. And there's a magnetic field on Saturn, but it does not have a metal core. So how could that be? Because they think the core should be from a dynamo of a spinning metal core. But it does not happen.
Is that a shadow?
That's a shadow, yes.
Whose?
The sun.
It's from the sun shining there. I think this is an actual photograph. I'm not sure. Some of these are artist conceptions, but most of them are actual photographs. Here's Enceladus. Now this is just a little tiny moon. Should have been frozen solid as a rock, right? That's water ice. And there's an ocean underneath that ice. And look at the geysers that are shooting out of it.
Wow.
I mean, if with those geysers and stuff, it should have vaporized most of its water and interior a long time ago. But that's not. And see the difference? And here's another moon of Saturn's, Titan. By the way, there's over 200 moons in our solar system. Titan here, this atmosphere is nitrogen and methane. They predicted there should be an ocean of methane under this atmosphere. They actually sent out a satellite. It went by here. It sent a satellite down to the surface, and guess what they found? Solid ground.
Oh,
There's a solid ground underneath that. I just love it when and now this is one that I really like. Here's Uranus. Note the tilt of the planet. It's kind of rolling around, going around the Earth. It's not rotating in the same direction that all the rest are. It has 24 moons. Neptune. See the difference? Every single one. Yes.
What were the 3 dots?
those pink ones.
I don't know. I'm sorry to say I noticed those also, and I've seen them in other photos.
Is that a ring like?
Yeah,
Like Saturn, yeah.
yeah, it is a ring.
Singular.
I'm thinking that there's storms on the surface of Uranus, but I don't know. So Neptune, Pluto. Pluto is the farthest thing out there. It should be a cold frozen rock. It's one of the smoothest surfaces in there because the stuff is still boiling out. It's a live planet. You can see the light area there. That's all new surface that's put down. Now let's look at the universe. Here's our Milky Way. It's 90,000 light years across. But that's the place where we live. We live in that. And here's Andromeda. This is one of the closest galaxies to us. It's 2.5 million light years away. That's our nearest one that's not ours. But here is a deep space picture. The original picture of this has 10,000 galaxies. And this is just a tiny, tiny section of our sky.
So picture.
Yes. That is an actual picture. And what's coming up here is look at this galaxy. And then this one. I mean, just look at what God's doing. And this is a galaxy with
It
a
looks like music, Don.
pulsar.
Can't you hear music coming
I mean,
out of
that right there is proof that there's a God. To me, I mean, all those things are too great to happen by accident.
Yeah, it's just and that pulsar, that stuff that's shooting out of it there, that's tremendous amount of radiation. Nothing anywhere in that galaxy could live because it would be destroyed by radiation right away. And then not only are there galaxies, but there are nebula. Here's one looking on the edge. I mean, it's just amazing at what God does. Here's another nebula. And this. These are all actual photographs.
Wow.
I think most of them are taken by the Hubble telescope. And this one here. This is the end of our tour. What will you believe? In man and his wisdom? Or what God says? You can accept what I'm showing you, or you can reject it. If you're a believer, you can say what I'm saying is incorrect. You can say that you believe that everything happened in billions of years as you've been taught. It really will not affect your salvation, because your salvation depends on your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Doctrine is important, but it's not necessary for salvation. But just worship our God. See this now. These are all lit up. I made them brighter. This is what our universe looked like at the end of day 4. God did these miraculous things, and they are miracles. But people don't want to accept it, but God did it. So, the number of stars in our galaxy is estimated to be 10 followed by 22 zeros.
Just our galaxy?
No, our universe. Excuse me, our universe has that many stars. Now, look at how he has created our solar system, and our astronomers know that there are other solar systems. And if God had anything to do with it, they will be as diverse as our solar system. So think of all the planets that are out there and how different they all are. And God created it all.
What got me was, and what you presented today was, and they're not all spinning around in the same direction.
Oh no, yeah, they're all different. they don't know what to do about it. They keep trying because they want to get rid of God. It's sad. It's really, really sad. But God has just done an absolutely wonderful thing.
Why do people listen to them?
Because that's what they're taught. I was taught that. I mean, I believed this until I was, in 1984 is when I accepted the Lord. And I was in my mid-30s, Janet? 84, anyway.
But I don't believe everything I hear.
Well, I used to. I don't now. And you can disbelieve what I'm telling you. If you know and love the Lord, it won't matter
Well, I'm not doubting
that much.
No, but if
But-
people don't
well-
have God in their families,
Yeah.
when you're growing up, and if God isn't somewhere
Yeah.
in your family, then you're going to believe what they tell you in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. But this is, I have shown you what I think God is really like. And I mean, that gives us a tremendous reason to worship Him. And so Don can now do that. And Don, thank you for permitting me to do this first.
Amen, yeah.